Hi, Maria. I wanted to first of all say thank you for giving us the opportunity to share videos this way if we're not able to attend. I'm sorry to miss the group critique today, but I'm excited to share with you guys what I've been working on. Um, I am very much a beginning painter. I don't have a lot of experience at all with any form of paint, and so this project really encouraged me to stretch and kind of step out of my comfort zone. So I want to talk to you a little bit about my process for creating this painting and then share my painting and some of the elements that I really enjoyed putting together. So the first thing that I did, as per your recommendation, was to make my own version of a color wheel. And this was really helpful for me because I didn't really know what to expect in using acrylic paints, and it was really eye-opening even just in adding these small color swatches of like the drying time for the primary colors, and then I was able to notice kind of what happened as I mixed other colors with it. I didn't really experiment with medium or anything. I just wanted to see what the solid pigment looked like, and I was really surprised at how dark the pigment of each color was. And so then after I got a little bit more familiar with the different ways to mix and make different colors and trying to pay attention to complementary colors across the wheel, then I took some time to practice blending with different colors to see like what shades and tones I could create. And this was really helpful in just getting to know, the few colors that I had picked from the art supply store. But also I kind of got to see what using different brushes looked like when I blended, and noticed like which ones had more bristles that showed up, or how I could kind of make those go away with continuous blending. And then this is where I made a note for myself about needing to learn how to use different mediums because I realized that I wasn't going to be able to work as quickly as needed for the paint. And so then after that, I decided to start gathering my items for my still life, and I was most inspired by the idea of a slice of life still life. So I started to kind of try and find some things. I started by making a list of items that I felt represented me and some of the things that I enjoy. And some of the things that I found that felt important to me were this wood cutting board that's made by a close friend of mine. This was kind of an experimental project for him, and I really, really love how it turned out. The piece itself is made up from lots of little tiny rectangles that are attached. And so I love the different designs that it creates, but I use this all the time, and so I really enjoy cooking, so I thought it would be a good thing to include to represent that part of me. And then some other things that I gathered from my house were items that I've been using a lot since the shelter in place started. So I found a sage bundle and this crystal that I kind of use just like in my classroom with my students. I actually pass this around when we're talking, but I brought it home to kind of help me think of them while we couldn't be together in the classroom, and then also just as like a grounding mechanism. I also have one of my favorite candles that not only I love the smell, but I also just really love the beautiful container that it's in. And then the tray that everything is on is actually the tray where I keep my incense burner, so the ashes don't get everywhere. So just some pieces that I've had for a really long time, or things that kind of reminded me of the last few months and what life has been like since quarantine started. And then once I had all of my items, I started to think about my composition and the positioning of each thing. I had a few items related to teaching that I wanted to include initially, but then as I was laying things out, I didn't really like how I had chosen a pair of scissors and a pencil, and I didn't really like how either of those things looked in comparison to the others. They were brightly colored and kind of didn't match the color tone, and I realized that they were going to really stand out. In this painting, I didn't really necessarily like that idea, so I decided not to include them. But so then I started to make some of my thumbnails, playing around with like my position and perspective a little bit. I think if I was going to do this again, I would play around even more. Stand up and walk around, or even put the items on a table that I had 360 degrees around to kind of check every angle. But I did end up choosing this one in the center here. I really liked how I could kind of see the sides of the cutting board there, which I thought showed more of the dimension and kind of really beautiful details of the cutting board that he made for me. I also came up with several questions during this part, and then I decided that I was going to start by doing a grayscale painting. And this was really challenging for me just because I don't even really consider myself a decent drawer. So I wanted to make a realistic still life, but I wanted to be really careful and take my time with each step so that it did look as close to life as possible. So to do that, I left everything arranged like my thumbnail, and I took a photo, and then I actually turned it into a grayscale painting like this. And I used this to paint my grayscale style on my canvas. So I actually used a 16 by 20 canvas size, which helped me I used this and then almost doubled the size of the scale of everything, so that I could really define these sharp straight lines and things like that to help me place where everything is going to be on my painting. I really enjoyed this part. It was fun to mix different grays. I have a black that I was planning to use, but I ended up just mixing complementary colors on the color wheel and then adding some white to those if I wanted a lighter shade of gray. And that was I really enjoyed that step specifically because it felt like it helped me lay the foundation, and I could start to see different details and where I wanted to add other layers on top. And it helped me think of the painting as more of a two-dimensional space. I think that's something I really struggle with, is transforming something three-dimensional into two-dimensional. I can't always look at something three-dimensional in that way as blocks of color. And so painting in grayscale really helped me narrow in on the different shades and different parts of the painting and what kinds of colors I would be using. And so after that, I started to play around with some different brushes and different blending techniques a bit more. I was really thinking about how I could make the mala beads that I use, which I actually didn't show you, but that was another element that I use for meditation and just relaxation. And I was really fixated for a while on how to create these warm, pale pinks and teals that are blended together. It's Amazonite is the stone. And so they're these muted grayish, pinkish, teal stones, but they're each slightly different. So I was thinking about how to make those. And then I played around a little bit with using a pointed edge to make the designs in the candle holder. And then I was just seeing what would happen if I used the same tool here to create texture in the wood cutting board. And lastly, last week I spent some time exploring different tools for making wood texture. I felt really intimidated by using the exact design of this cutting board and trying to create all the details of it because it is so elaborate. And so I decided for this project that I was just going to look at general changes in tone of the cutting board. And I noticed when I was looking at it that the edges have, a light, more worn shade than the center, which surprised me, but I think it's related to water and being dried out from, cleaning and things like that. So that's what I decided to focus on when I was creating texture, because really creating all of these little teeny tiny lines felt really intimidating to me. It might be something I go back and add to. But yeah, so I played around a little bit with some different tools and different colors and layers of different shades of brown and how they might mix together and what would happen if I put one on top of the other. I really liked how this one turned out. I used a tool that I found at an art supply store, and I tried using different parts of it to see which one looked the most realistic. I do really love that also when you touch this one, it has texture. So now I'm going to show you how my painting turned out.